Monday tele-rally with U.S. House candidate Sarah Palin, he had this preview.
Another day in paradise. This was a strange day. You probably all read about it.
Another day in paradise.
On social media, Trump said the raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate.
He chooses good words, doesn't he? It wasn't necessary or it was inappropriate, like they sort of did an investigation like that. What you got in them boxes? 12, 13, 14, 15? This is unprecedented!
Trump supporters gathered outside Mar-a-Lago in a noisy show of solidarity with the former president.
This show of solidarity is a bit noisy. Why can't you show your solidarity quietly? We really like Donald Trump. That's more like it.
No person is above the law, not even the President of the United States, not even a former President of the United States.
How was Taiwan? How did you afford that brooch? Because you what? You got a tip on what? You did some trading on where? Oh!
Attorney Michael Cohen welcomed the raid with this TikTok post.
All right, knock, knock. Who's there? The FBI, that's who's there.
It's a very good TikTok joke, the fucking FBI. Also, I don't imagine it's like knock, knock. It's more like,
FBI, open up! I want to see him indicted and incarcerated for the crimes that he's committed. And they are plentiful, and hopefully soon we're going to start to see some action.
I don't mind seeing people convicted of crimes legitimately.
On Monday, a New York Times reporter posted these photos.
What?
Promoting an upcoming book, claiming they showed Trump trying to flush documents while he was president.
Well, that's how he dealt with it. You've got the CIA, you've got the FBI, you've got the commander-in-chief of the most powerful nation on earth. Oh, God, I better get rid of this stuff.
In his statement, Trump called the search warrant an attack by radical left Democrats who desperately don't want me to run for president in 2024.
Donald Trump is the biggest threat the American Republic has ever faced. So says Dick Cheney. Should all of us be loving on Dick Cheney? Have we all forgotten who Dick Cheney actually is? Dick Cheney, whether he likes his own daughter or not, is not someone who could just turn up on the television calling people evil without us pointing out that he did, under false pretenses, kill children.
In our nation's 246-year history.
They say you don't judge a book by its cover, but if the cover of a book is I'm an evil cross between the Emperor out of Star Wars,
I'm looking forward to completing your training.
J.R. Ewing,
Hello, Daddy.
and just a snarling bastard, then judge it by that cover.
There has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump.
Except, I don't know, maybe me, when I said that there was WMDs in Iraq when there wasn't, and then killed like a lot of Iraqis, and then profited through Halliburton. Like, look, I know loads of you love Donald Trump, and I know loads of you don't love Donald Trump, but I don't think there's that many of you that go, do you know who I miss? Dick Cheney. What I liked about him in particular was his snarling downright evil.
I'm getting a message. I don't even have an earpiece. Somehow I'm getting a message that the contents of the safe, and I have to say before he comes out here, there's the boxes. That's what they found today, and they found a lot. We're going to talk about that. But then there was the contents of the safe. No one knows what's in the safe. But we somehow, this guy's the real timer. Can we bring out the content? Oh, my God, this is awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your service. A serious guy. Wow. We're opening this together. I've never seen this. This is what was in Trump's safe. Don't ask me how we got this, but we did. Oh, my God. This is so exciting. Okay. Oh, look at this. The P-tape. I should have known. I should have known that that's... oh. Well, this is the Coach for Dummies. Oh, look at this. What is this? Oh, the receipt for Melania. This is, oh, Trump's birth certificate. Oh, from the Republic of Kenya. Wow, that is really shocking that that's what... Oh, my God. Look at this. An envelope that says, don't lose combination is safe, put in safe place. Oh, the deed to Rudy Giuliani's soul. What is this?
I'm back from vacay, America. But while I was away in the beautiful state of Maine, surrounded by my liberal family members, I couldn't stop thinking about the Mar-a-Lago raid. I know. Why'd they do it? What'd they take? And what's Biden's play here? Remember, they leaked that Trump was hoarding nuclear secrets. They charged him under the Espionage Act, so they must think he's trying to sell the secrets to our enemies. So I had the team here at Primetime do some digging, because I kept thinking about how sloppy Bill Clinton was. And then we came across this old doozy. President Bill Clinton actually lost the nuclear football.
General Hugh Shelton says in the year 2000, the Clinton White House lost the presidential codes needed to launch nuclear weapons. In his newly released memoirs, General Shelton writes, the codes were actually missing for months. This is a big deal, a gargantuan deal, and we dodged a silver bullet.
So we couldn't launch nukes for months because Slick Willie fumbled the nuclear football. Maybe left it in some mistress's hotel room. And then he covered it up. When the Pentagon would ask to see the codes, Bill would say he's too busy or I'm in an important meeting with Monica. When officials eventually figured out that they were missing, nothing happened. No coverage, no leaks. They didn't raid his house in Arkansas to see if he was selling the codes to the Chinese. When it comes to classified docs, Clinton was the worst. He sent his top advisor into the National Archives on a search and destroy mission.
A member of the presidential materials staff reported that he saw Berger stuff something that looked like white papers inside of his pants and into his socks. He also smuggled original documents out of the building and stashed them at a construction site across the street. Eventually, he returned for the documents, took them to his office, and destroyed them by cutting them into little pieces. The documents that Berger was examining and stealing were related to the Clinton administration's response to terrorist threats.
So the guy had Al-Qaeda documents stolen, put them in a construction site, and then sliced them up with scissors? And then he paid a fine and did community service. That's it. No scandal. They didn't investigate Bill Clinton for sending his goon in there to destroy documents. It's not like Sandy went in there because he wanted to. Of course Bill told him to go. If Trump had sent Stephen Miller into the archives to walk out with paperwork down his pants, they'd both be in jail right now. I don't think criminal justice reform would save them. And listen to how sketchy this Clinton caper was. The president made a bunch of recordings, okay, while he was president in the Oval Office, and they were on tape. And then when he left the office, people found out about these presidential tapes, and they wanted them back. But Clinton wouldn't give them back. He stashed the tapes in his sock drawer at home. And when Judicial Watch sued to get the tapes, the same DOJ that raided Trump's home argued that it's up to the president to decide which recordings are personal and which are official. And the judge dismissed the lawsuit, and Clinton kept the tapes. Is anybody paying attention here? The Clintons are part of the establishment. They get special treatment. Trump's not. He gets treated like a criminal. And they've been trying to take him down since the beginning. The illegal spying on the campaign, throttling his presidency with special counsel investigations, 2 impeachments, a show trial. His people got shackled, thrown in jail. But he was still standing, beating Joe in the polls. So they went to plan B. Bust into his home and just start grabbing. And if you think the raid was kosher still, look who's defending it. Peter Strzok, the lover. The former FBI agent caught trashing Trump and cooking up Russia collusion. This is the guy that took out the insurance policy in case Trump won. Listen to him on CNN say how this raid was nothing, and the FBI treated Hillary really tough.
First off, there was more than a year-long investigation, extraordinarily intrusive, into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton at the time she was running for president of the United States. So I don't want to hear that this is some sort of one-sided Department of Justice or FBI.
Extraordinarily intrusive? The feds came over to Chappaqua and had lunch. They handed out immunity deals like candy. They didn't storm in with guns blazing and rifle through Bill's sock drawer, which they probably would have found the tapes. Clinton destroyed evidence with acid and hammers. Did Trump bleach the love letters from Little Rocket Man? No. He kept them padlocked in a room like the feds told him to. You still don't believe me that this raid was not on the up and up? Look at the people involved. FBI agent who visited Mar-a-Lago back in June and told Trump to lock up the docks. Guy named Jay Bratt. He also happens to be a Democrat donor who helped Robert Mueller with the fake Russia investigation. That's who they sent down to Mar-a-Lago. And the guy's leaking like crazy to his buddy David Loftman, who's running cover for the raid. Watch this.
The fact that he had SCI material out in the wild, so to speak, at risk, is particularly stunning and particularly egregious. There was, in fact, sufficient probable cause to carry out this search. It completely validates the search warrant. It completely validates the government's investigation.
Oh, and then you have FBI intelligence analyst Brian Auten. Ever heard of him? He's the guy that helped bury the laptop before the last election. He's the guy who was disciplined for cooking up phony warrants to spy on the Trump campaign and for pushing the dossier. Ready? According to Real Clear Investigations, this guy Auten is about to be put on the Trump case. Why? Well, because he's a, quote, expert on Russia and nuclear warfare. Of course. So the Trump raid is being run by the same people behind the Russia hoax, the January 6th investigation, and the fake Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping. All the same people. And by the way, that first Gretchen Whitmer case, the one that got tossed out because of a hung jury, because it was entrapment. So the feds are retrying it, and there's closing arguments today. It is making the FBI look so bad. The undercover agents encouraged these guys to kidnap the governor when they didn't want to, smoked weed and slept with them, and planted explosives in their truck, and then charged them with possession of explosives. And we just found out they did the same thing in Virginia. An FBI informant tried to get a disabled vet to assassinate Northam, that blackface governor. The FBI ran this big scheme to try to make it look like Trump supporters were out trying to kill Democrat governors before the election. But you're not even allowed to criticize the FBI because they'll accuse you of trying to get them killed. We're probably never going to find out what happened at Mar-a-Lago. This judge, the magistrate, the guy that hates Trump and loves Epstein, he's going to let the Justice Department redact whatever they want from the affidavit, whatever they want. So you're not going to see anything. You're just going to see black bars. And here's where it gets really fishy. The Gang of Eight, the leaders of the Senate and the House, they're asking to see the documents taken from Trump's home. What do you think Schumer and Pelosi are going to do with that? They're just going to leak and spin lies about it. And then the media is going to report on it. What do we call that again, Nancy?
You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
Hey.
So on the 6th of August 2022, there was a lightning strike near the White House that killed people. And that article was published on News Hub on the 25th of August 2022. If you basically go to the Google and put in these details, you'll be able to see the actual video of this tragedy. 2 men and 2 women were struck by lightning on Thursday, on the 6th of August, whilst visiting Washington, just north of the White House. And the victims were among the unlucky few struck by a bolt that hit the ground during a violent afternoon thunderstorm. So more heat can draw more moisture into the atmosphere while also encouraging rapid updraft. These are 2 key factors for charged particles which led to the lightning. So among those who were hit, about 90% survive, and the country counted 444 deaths from lightning strikes from 2006 to 2021. But even as lightning strikes increased, being hit by one is still extremely rare in the United States. That's what experts say. Roughly 40 million lightning strikes touch down in the country every year, according to the Centre for Disease Control, which, with the odds of being struck less than 1 in a million. And I think the chances were up by 12% or something in recent times. Now, let's come back to our little island, okay? So Tawhiri Matia, he is one of Papatūānuku and Ranganui's sons, and he is basically the Māori equivalent to Zeus. He's the Māori god of lightning and storms, and he basically doesn't like humans, okay, and he only listens to the gods. And if the gods are really, really cross, they can just cause massive storms and wipe out massive populations on the earth. And I personally believe that's why Nelson and Kaio were suffering a lot of floods, because I feel like the Māori gods are trying to clean up and restore things back to the way they were, because we were the babies of the gods. Yeah, and that's why the Americans, they've got like on their crest it says God, or on their crest, in God we trust. That's there on their judicial crest. And the reason why they have that, it's because they trust the Māori gods. And the beehive was built on the head of the fish, Te Ika Maui Island, because the beehive basically directs and instructs the rest of the world. So whoever is in the beehive effectively can control and manipulate the rest of the world. So if you get the wrong people in the beehive, you end up with quite a satanic world. But if you put godly people into the beehive, you're going to get a different result. But the thing with the gods is the beehive was built on the head of the fish, and so there are certain ones who are the babies of the gods who can control the beehive just with their own minds, because it's not the other way around. People in the beehive don't control. If there is someone out there stronger who can control the beehive with their own mind. Yeah, and so that's why you have the beehive here. It's linked up to the White House, and you've also got the White House on Auckland on Queen Street. That's no mistake. That's because that's linked up to Mar-a-Lago, yeah, and it's all linked up. Even the Oval Office, that's my mountain. Yeah, Kahuranaki Maunga, it's the mountain, my mountain. It's shaped like an oval, and that's the Oval Office. And so, yeah, so everything that's happening now and unfolding now is quite biblical. And if you actually wanted to learn about the ancestry of the East Coast Māoris, we were God's babies, and the book of Revelations was written about us. We're allowed to start the curse of Revelations if we want, because the gods trusted us so much to do that. We've got a lot of power with the gods, and so you'll see a lot of changes happening, and that's because of the gods listen to us. Yeah, they listen to God's babies. And we don't even have to be in a church for them to listen to us, and we also don't even need to be in the beehive. They still listen to us because we work as one, and yeah, we have sonar, and we can just talk to each other. Yeah, we all just talk to each other all around the world, just with our minds. Yeah, and that's part of my Indigenous culture, and it's not a crime to do that. That's kind of like the job of the Indigenous Māori, or the true bloodlines, the hika hika. Hika hika is like the pure blood, blue bloods, and in my family, I come from the Hikawai family, and we're the direct descendants of Granddad Kiwa. Granddad Kiwa was Granddad Shiva. He's my granddad. And yeah, we're basically God's babies. We're like babies in adults' bodies. We never grow up. It's kind of like Peter Pan, when Tinkerbell and the kids, they never grow up. We actually never grow up, and we were designed like that. So we're like the oldest and the youngest at the same time. Yeah, it's kind of like a 180-degree world that we live in, and we've got a lot of power. So I'm going to play the rest of the video, and there's a lot of clues. A lot of people don't really watch my videos very much now, but for your own benefit, I suggest watching a lot of my videos. Watching my videos, it could really save your soul, and it could be the difference between peace to exist or cease to exist. It's the book of the Bible was written by Māori and for Māori and about Māori. Yeah, because we were the Anunnaki, we're God's babies. And that's why all of the countries around the world promised to protect us. And that's why people and doctors, it was very bad of doctors to electrocute us, and a lot of our people were electrocuted, and now God is going to electrocute them. Well, yeah, because our other big granddaddy is Zeus. Yeah, Zeus is one of our granddads. He's basically the Māori, well, he's Greek, but he's also like Roman as well, and he yeah, he is Tawhiri Mātia. That's one of our granddads as well. And Eeyore Mātua Kore, that was Eeyore is like a moon of Jupiter, and Jupiter is one of the planets for Zeus, and Hera is one of the lovers of Zeus as well. Hera, yeah. So there's a lot of like international bloodlines. There was 12 sacred families, 12 sacred branches of the sacred family, and you're not allowed to break up the family. You're not allowed to pitch us against each other, because we're all together. And so when people actually purposely cause division, that's one of the sins in the book of the Revelations, said that you're not allowed to do that to us. And so that's why you get the plagues, and it is the Māori matakete, or the high up priests, who talk to the gods, and then they listen to us. Yeah. And if people hurt us too much, we'll just destroy everybody. That's part of the prophecy. And the prophet from Pūtahi Marae, which is on the Wairau River, up the Wairau River, up to Te Reina, the prophet of Pūtahi Marae. Well, Pūtahi is an ancient game that we used to play, and there was like 8 segments, kind of like the 8 planets, and then there was a sun in the middle, and it was an ancient game. But it also was the I think it's plutonium, the plutonium symbol is Pūtahi. That's my marae on the periodic table. Yeah, the picture is Pūtahi. Like the way that it's structured, the anatomic structure. Yeah. Anatomic. Yeah, so when Grandad Maui, he was from where I'm from, Mount Whakapunaki, but he would go on big tiki tours, and he travelled all around the world, and he claimed the whole world, and he put like a plutonium bomb inside the prophet of Pūtahi, so that the prophet could never get killed. And if you kill the prophet of Pūtahi, it's like a atomic bomb. Yeah, that's all part of the secret information. Yeah, and so because of that, like, well, the Ark of the Covenant was also like a plutonium bomb, the Ark of the Covenant. And so because of that, people would come to this country and they would exploit the beehive, and they would exploit Māori, and they would change people's whakapapa or their ancestry just so that they could gain the power. But the gods, know what's going on, you see. And so anyone who's been doing that, whoever tries to hurt the prophet of Pūtahi or the prophet of Kahuranaki, there's 2 prophets that are in the book of the Revelations, whoever tries to hurt us, the same thing that they tried to do to us happens to them. Yeah, that's where you get the 180 world or the mirror realm. Yeah, so anyone who tries to hurt us, the same thing that they did to us is how they will be killed. Yeah, either spiritually or like actual physically. And our granddad Zeus, he will just electrocute you forever and ever. Yeah, like a torture thing. And that's why Hitler was obsessed with the Aryan Māori, because we hold all the secrets, but we were very good-hearted. Yeah, and that's our culture and our custom. So the reason why you're seeing a lot of things on the news, it's because the people, well, in the media and all that, high up royalty, they all know what I'm talking about. It's all encoded and it's secret talk, and I'm allowed to talk about it because I've got a good heart. Yeah, and the time is right for people to learn. So you basically should start learning about the Māori gods and actually start praying to them, because they're going to save your life. Yeah, and I'll play a few little snippets in and out of this. And I've got no hard feelings towards the media people in this video, because they're actually doing me a favour, because they're actually trying to signal to everybody the codes, except they don't have the blessing to actually straight up and say it, but I have the blessing to say it because I'm God's baby. Yeah, and that's why I make these videos. And I don't even have to make them. I could just keep it all to myself, but it's not really tikanga to do that. It's not nice to let people die. It's nicer to give them a chance and for them to repent, because I'm just God's messenger and one of God's messengers, and he has heaps of messengers. And the gods want you to start reading the Bible and actually respecting the true gods. Respect them, because they're very powerful. Yeah. So that's why you've got the Indigenous things happening. But there are some fakers that pretend to be Indigenous and they're not. And then if they do that, they're going to get really badly cursed. So that's why you have to know your whakapapa. If you don't know it, when you die, you go straight to the house of Whiro and get tortured forever and ever by demons. That's one of the rules. That's why we say learn your whakapapa, because if you don't, you'll get trapped. And that's one of the feasts of Whiro. And there's a lot of people who worship Whiro, the demon. And that's why they blew up the cave at Te Reina at the top of Te Heko or Te Iko Maui at the top of the North Island. They blew up that cave, but there's 2 Te Reinas. There's a secret Te Reina. That's where I'm from, the secret one. But the other Te Reina at the top, that got blown up because of the satanic people. They wanted to capture everyone's spirits when they died. Yeah. So I'm in a spiritual battle with the demons. I'm really strong because the demons promised not to hurt me. That was the deal, because they're my family as well. Yeah, you can't break up the family. Yeah. But there is a mighty battle going on. And so everyone around the world is getting higher consciousness, and everyone knows aspects of what's going on. But only the high priests of the Māori, only we know what's going to happen. And that's why a lot of my videos, you'll see it looks like I'm violent, but I'm not. I'm actually just telling you what the gods are telling me to tell you. Yeah. And you can listen to my videos or not. It's up to you. Would you like to be tortured for the rest of your life? beaten to death? Or would you like to just repent and pay attention and not be walking around with fake tardingers on, fake ears? I mean, wake up. Yeah, and so enjoy this video. And yeah, thanks to the media people making all these cool videos, because it helps me. It aids me with getting the message across. Yeah, and God bless America, because American people are lovely. I love America. It's one of my favorite countries. Yeah. But, you know, obviously the gods are going to make the ultimate decision on what happens. Yeah. So in the book of Revelations, it says that there is going to be like a 7-headed dragon with 10 horns, and that represents the sacred waka of the gods, Takitimu. And Takitimu was like a really special waka or boat, and my granddad, Tamatea Arakinoi, he was the captain. But the actual leader was Hine Korako, and she's my nana, and I'm hika hika to her, which means I'm the direct bloodline to her. And I've got direct bloodline to all of the different creatures or heads on the beast. And if you read the book of the Bible, this is all very much biblical. And yeah, and so now I'm going to let you guys watch the rest of the news articles and see if you can fill in the gaps, because basically it can go two ways. It's like a pendulum. It can be 12 o'clock is north, you can go to heaven, or at 6 o'clock, 666 is the dirty south, and you can go straight down to Armageddon. Yeah, and those are the options in the Bible. And a lot of people in history have discredited the Bible, but it was actually written by my granddads. Yeah, and so if you want to learn more about your ancestry, and if you're a Māori from the East Coast, read Genesis, and that will help you learn who we are. Timothy is also a really good book, and so is Psalms, the book of Psalms. Yeah, and actually all of the books are like really helpful. Different books are for different purposes. If you do get electrocuted by the gods, you have to repent and say, you have to declare that you love God, and then the electrocution will stop. And I know this because I've been electrocuted before, and I've also been forced by the gods to do certain things, so I know that it's real. Yeah, and they're pretty good. Like when you just do what they say, when you do what the gods say, they bless you. But if you keep trying to hurt me or my family, you'll basically just get cursed. Yeah. So all the things you see on the media, it's like a play script for what's really happening, and it all starts here. That's why the timeline is here. Enjoy.
Raid on his Right now, we go overseas. Donald Trump's dreams of taking back the White House could be just that after an unprecedented FBI raid on his Mar-a-Lago resort. Federal agents raided the former president's Florida home as part of an investigation into his removal of official presidential records from the White House. Republican strategist John Jordan is with us this morning from the States. John, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. This is quite serious, potentially, for Donald Trump and his potential aspirations for re-entering the White House.
Yeah, it's quite serious potentially for President Trump, and it's also quite serious that this could very much blow up in the face of the Democrats and the media. And it all depends on what is found and what was the statutory base, what was the application for applying for this warrant. In America, if the police want to raid or search something, they have to get a warrant that has to be signed off on a judge, and they have to agents or law enforcement, whether it's local police or the FBI, have to swear to a number of facts to get a judge to sign off on that. We need to see what that application said. If in fact there looks like there's evidence of serious wrongdoing there, and there's probable cause to show that, yes, that would be very, very serious, if not fatal, to President Trump. On the flip side, if this is just a quibble about which records he took from the White House, and this is a National Archives issue, bear in mind that all presidents take classified information home with them and onto their presidential libraries when they leave office. That's not something just President Trump does. There's a classified section in every presidential library, and there's classified areas in each former president's home and office for this. So if this is not more, if that's all there is a National Archives thing, and they went after somebody in the middle of the night, and they went to a magistrate who technically can sign off on a warrant, but not a real judge. And in this case, that magistrate, when they were in private practice, represented a lot of the Epstein folks. And that's a fact that just came out broke in the last hour. So if it's just that, this could very much blow up in the Democrats' face. And you're already seeing American enemies of Trump on the Republican side backing off of this story really quickly. So it remains to be seen who's going to get hurt here.
Yeah. What are his supporters going to say about this? I imagine they'll be very upset.
Yeah, I mean, predictably so, right? So, but what I'm looking at is what are his enemies saying? What are the enemies of Trump saying on the Democrat side? What are his enemies in the media saying? And what are his enemies inside the Republican Party, the so-called never-Trumpers, saying? Because that's going to tell you which way this is going. And right now, his enemies, for the most part, the smart ones are being awfully quiet. And some of the people that are looking to run against him in 2024 are taking a kind of almost a pro-Trump line, insisting that the Department of Justice come forward with whatever facts that they have and be very transparent. And this includes former Governor Cuomo of New York, who is an arch enemy of the Trumps. Even he said that. So the enemies of Trump in this case are equivocating at worst.
Are you one of those who doesn't believe in the independence of the FBI, the Department of Justice? Are you one of those Americans who has so little faith in your justice system and your law enforcement agencies that you think they could be bought or persuaded by the White House to do something like this?
It's more complicated than that. There are many different law enforcement agencies, federal and local and state, and the vast majority of them are fine. In this case, that the FBI does have, there's some real problems. Remember, it was the FBI that bought into the Steele dossier, who bought into the whole Russia collusion thing, who lied in affidavits to get in phone tap warrants with Carter Page, who've actively been caught lying. They've been caught lying already, so I don't know how far it goes, but there's trouble there.
John, it's fascinating to me because in New Zealand, we have, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, there is almost a universal trust in these agencies in New Zealand, and I know that it's not the case in the United States. You are a Republican. You have been for many years. You're a big supporter of the party. Do you want Donald Trump back as leader?
Well, let me real fast. For most of America's history, only until a couple of years ago, all Americans respected the FBI completely and trusted them completely. Now there's real reason for doubt. I'm not sure where I come down on that, if it's just a couple bad actors or if it's throughout the entire agency. I don't know. Do I want President Trump back? I want somebody back who's going to, I support the policy positions of President Trump. I think that the American experience in the last 18 months proves that Biden is a disaster. We need to resecure our border. Afghanistan was a mess. They're mishandling that invited the Ukraine problem. They're inviting problems with China and Taiwan. So yeah, I want somebody back who's going to take care of this. Whether or not it's Trump, it matters not to me. I care about the issues. And if up until 2020, Trump was the only presidential candidate who would thoroughly deal with these issues and with whom I agreed. Now there may be other options.
For Republican strategist John Jordan, thanks so much for your time. Great to have you on the show 19 minutes after 7 o'clock. I do want to make clear also this morning that the White House says it had no notification from the FBI that this raid was going to take place and deny any politicisation of that case.
Evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Time. Happy Monday. We've had a few days to reflect on it and have concluded that no honest person could believe that the raid on Donald Trump's home last week was a legitimate act of law enforcement. It was not. Even the Biden administration didn't really bother to pretend otherwise. The official explanations that we have heard for the raid make no sense at all. It doesn't matter how forcefully they are repeated by the media, they're nonsensical. In case you've forgotten what they are, here's the very first explanation they gave us.
Why did this guy have these ultra-classified documents in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, unsecured, where they could be presumably broken in on or stolen or photographed and given to hostile foreign powers or conceivably even terrorists?
Are you listening to this? So it's not just classified documents in the basement of Mar-a-Lago, but according to Michael Beschloss, the pet historian of the half-wits who run our country, these are ultra-classified documents, the most classified kind, just sitting there helpless in boxes like maidens in bikinis waiting to be photographed by terrorists. You just imagine Al-Qaeda taking selfies with these documents, one after the other relentlessly, repulsive and terrifying. Is it true? At this point, no one has provided proof that it is true, not that august historians like Michael Beschloss wait around for actual evidence before pronouncing final judgment on cable news shows. They just go ahead. But for the sake of argument on our show, we're going to say that it is in fact true, and that Donald Trump did in fact have boxes of classified documents sitting in his cellar. Let's say that's true. What would it mean? Well, what it means depends in part on what the documents were. Did those documents contain meaningful information? Should they have been classified in the first place? Is there a good reason the rest of us should not have been allowed to see those documents? Now, you never hear those questions asked in public, but anyone who lives in Washington knows perfectly well they should be asked in public, a lot. Because in Washington, virtually anything can qualify as an official state secret, and often does. In 2011, to name one of many examples, the CIA finally declassified a trove of documents from the First World War. These documents dated back to 1917, almost 100 years before. One of these documents, the most ultra-secret of them, contained a recipe for disappearing ink. Now, why would federal bureaucrats spend an entire century hiding an outdated recipe for ink that you can buy legally in any magic store for your fifth grader? Good question. No one asked it. Instead, then CIA Director Leon Panetta issued a press release bragging about how he was giving the secret ink recipe to a grateful public. Quote, "These documents remained classified for nearly a century until recent advancements in technology made it possible to release them," Panetta wrote. "When historical information is no longer sensitive, we take seriously our responsibility to share it with the American people." Now, there's no hint whatsoever that Panetta was joking when he wrote that. "You're welcome, America. Here's your century-old ink recipe." Again, this was in 2011, so think it through. You had to wonder, what recent technological advancements was Leon Panetta talking about in the press release? And just how recent were they? Was Panetta actually saying that CIA spies were still communicating in World War I era disappearing ink as of, say, 2010? Or even as of 1950? Please. It was bizarre. Of course, it was another lie from the people in charge. Here's the truth. The documents have been classified for 100 years, not because disappearing ink was any sort of national security secret. They've been classified because the government's default position in every case is that you have no right to see anything ever. It is their information. It is not yours. Yours the citizen. Yours the taxpayer. Shut up and pay for it all. To this day, there are large amounts of classified information remaining from World War II. These are documents written 80 years ago by people whose grandchildren are now old. But you still can't see it. You don't have the clearances. Sorry. So when they tell you that Donald Trump had classified documents in his basement, those materials could be literally anything. But once again, for the sake of argument, we're going to stipulate that Trump did have possession of documents that were classified for some good reason. Documents that, for example, we legitimately would not want the Chinese government to see. If that is true, would it justify what happened? Would it justify sending a large team of federal agents to shut down the entire southern tip of Palm Beach to raid Mar-a-Lago on a weekday? No.
It wouldn't. So one of the laws they're telling you that Trump broke doesn't even have criminal penalties attached to it because it's not serious enough. Federal paramilitaries don't show up at your house when you violate the Presidential Records Act. And in fact, as we later learned, the actual warrant for the raid, which was signed by an openly partisan judge who, because you couldn't make any of this up if you tried, once represented Jeffrey Epstein's side in the famous underage sex case, that judge allowed the FBI to seize virtually every piece of paper in Donald Trump's house, whether or not it had ever been classified. They took Roger Stone's clemency order, for example. That had been on the front page of the Washington Post, so it was therefore probably not a secret. Apparently, the feds even walked off with Donald Trump's passports, preventing him from leaving the country. So whatever else this raid was not about the Presidential Records Act. That explanation is absurd. It's almost as ridiculous as the claim that the White House knew nothing about the raid before it happened. Right. Please. If they're going to lie to us, they ought to try a little harder. So what was this raid about? Well, we're keeping track, so here's the second explanation they gave us.
Now with Donald Trump, suddenly, when we're talking about the possibility of nuclear weapons, classified documents of the highest classified status being stolen from the White House and taken to Mar-a-Lago.
Just a reminder of why the Justice Department might be a little bit concerned about nuclear secrets knocking around Mar-a-Lago.
2 words for you, my friend. 2 words. Nuclear secrets.
What? Nuclear secrets? Nuclear secrets are the highest classified status. Ultra secret nuclear secrets. Donald Trump stole those. Ladies and gentlemen, America is in danger tonight. That was their new explanation for the raid. Now, that revised storyline was leaked anonymously to an obedient press corps, which, as you just saw, repeated every word like it was verifiable fact. Yet, once again, no one even bothered to explain what these nuclear secrets might be. What's a nuclear secret exactly? And what did Trump plan to do with them? Did he plan to defect to Moscow? Give the launch codes to Vladimir Putin? Start his own rogue state in the Bahamas? Nobody said. But that didn't stop former CIA Director Michael Hayden from suggesting that Donald Trump should be executed, fried to death in the electric chair for committing these crimes, whatever these crimes were. We still don't know. There weren't a lot of facts floating around. There still aren't. But there was a reason for that. They couldn't tell you the whole story. They couldn't release all the documents because that would jeopardize American national security. So instead, you're just going to have to trust them. And of course, you're going to have to listen to their outrage. There was a lot of that. There was endless huffing on television about something called the rule of law, and how absolutely no one is above that. No one, not even a former president.
Joining us now is the attorney for President Trump. Lindsay Halligan is with us. I want to very specifically, are there other items that you can name besides the passports that were taken that should never have been taken?
That's the thing. We don't know exactly what they took. We've asked multiple times for a real inventory description of what was taken, but the inventory list they gave us is borderline worthless. It doesn't say where the documents were located, what specifically was taken. Now we know they seized his passports, 2 of which were expired, and they gave them to his attorneys today, so he'll have them soon. But we have real concerns in terms of whether they were right to take certain things. The Department of Justice is not communicating with us as to what the evidence is and what their intentions are, but we will continue to try to get to the bottom of it. The Department of Justice clearly has different rules for Donald Trump than anyone else out there. The whole system truly does suffer when they write different rules for different people.
Why were you and another attorney of the president denied access to watch what was going on, and who specifically were they asking to turn off the surveillance footage?
They didn't give us a reason for preventing us from going inside the property. I even tried to get in the property just for sake of air conditioning because it was like 95 degrees outside, and they were there from 10 a.m. to 6:30, I think. But they wouldn't even let me stand inside the property where they weren't searching. They asked President Trump and I think his managers to turn off the surveillance, which they didn't.
Right. Okay. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you so much, President Trump. Lindsay, thank you.
President Trump's attorney, Alina Habba, is here now with an update. All right, so tell us a little bit more about this filing that just dropped.
Sure. I think it's to be expected that we obviously have questions about the Department of Justice having their own filtering system to go through taint, as they call it. I don't know. Would you want the Department of Justice going through your boxes when they're investigating you? So what this calls for is what needs to be done. We need an impartial, that means not Republican, not Democrat, impartial special master to go in there, take a look at what they seized, give back to the former president what is rightfully his, things that are clearly declassified, things that are also privilege, attorney-client privilege from when he was in the White House, things that he should never have been seized. The passports, we shouldn't have found that out after the fact. The problem is we have this incredibly broad warrant that should never have been in place in the first place. We have the magistrate judge, who we know is affiliated with Epstein. He went and signed this document, didn't care how broad it was, and now we have a problem. We've got documents where we have no identification, no idea what they have, and the former president didn't have a passport for a while. I've never heard of this in my life.
Yeah, you can't have crooked cops rifling through evidence, planning evidence. I mean, they have a history of planning evidence and doctoring evidence. You just can't trust them. You have to get this stuff out of their hands. But the filing also added some new details we didn't know. And when the president went down there, when this biased Department of Justice official was down there in the basement. What did he say? He said, like, you guys don't even really need to show me this stuff.
No, he honestly, he was so cooperative. He said, whatever you want to do, go in there. He walked in, said hello. Here, show them this. They said, oh, thank you. You didn't need to show it to us, but we appreciate it. Hey, put an extra padlock on it.
They were sandbagging him.
Sandbagging him. They were basically saying, we're going to set it up, in my opinion. They were going to set it up to look like he was hiding it, not thinking that the former president or his legal team would actually say, hey, whoa. What are you talking about? We let you in. We let you in February. We let you in January. You told us we were good, and then you didn't communicate with us for months, and then you send in 24 FBI agents?
And he's trying to back channel, we're hearing, with the attorney general, trying to lower the temperature and say, hey, guys, whatever you need, this is from my library. Yeah. Who cares who has it? The archives, the Mar-a-Lago people, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Jesse, that's a really good point.
One of the caveats that I do have some personal information that I did get personally involved in was some information that had to do with the Stargates and Looking Glass, and more specifically the 2012 problem with those projects. The popular opinion of what's out there right now is that the project was shut down because there was a problem when we approached 2012. I've heard it described a number of ways, but to my knowledge, the problem is that the timelines converge on that point in time. And when you know enough about the Stargate projects and the Looking Glass project to know how string theory works and how the possibility of possibilities works and how making one choice over here doesn't necessarily mean that the other choice couldn't exist at the same time. But once you get your brain wrapped around this subject, you find out that at the end of 2012, in an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time, no matter which choice we make. And that's important to the people that had access to Looking Glass because they would use Looking Glass knowing the choices that they would make and the future would pop up. The big mistake was coming up with the possibility of future. And when we started using a computer to say, well, if we make this choice, it's 79% possible that this scenario happens, and 23% are possible, or whatever, using round numbers, that this scenario would happen. The understanding at the time was that was realistic. However, if you go down the road further and free will continues to exercise itself on this game, that 79% possibility sometimes changes very, very fast. But if you look at the situation in a point of time, it seems very realistic that that's the greatest possibility. What happened was people, very smart people, began to figure out that something big was coming up. Something that made it so all the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the looking glass inherently ended up in the same future. And no decision, no possibility changed past a certain point. That's the big secret. All possible timelines lead to the same basic set of history in the future. That is what sends everybody that has all of the information, that knows everything, into a blind panic. The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game. And nothing could be manipulated beyond that point. When I was in the military, it would have been before '97 when I got in trouble. One of my particular areas that I was amazingly intuitive about is problem solving / mission planning, or more specifically, taking a bad mission and fixing it. Certainly knowing how string theory and possible futures works makes it so you can work your mind very quickly to see the reality of what's happening and decide what decisions need to be made to change it for a particular outcome. At a certain point, after they're done hearing the computer tell them this is what's going to happen over and over and over and over again, all they become focused on is how do we fix it? What I do know is that I was called in and asked to solve this problem, this timeline contraction problem. And I eventually did my due diligence and did all the investigating, and basically only had one piece of information, and that was reinforcement. The computer's right. The timelines will contract down to some inevitable thing. There is an inevitable event. It's been forecast, it's been predicted, it's been fed to us in a slop trough of what they want us to believe will happen. They don't actually have control over what happens. They only have control over the reaction, and it seems that no matter what they try to do to cause their desired reaction, it's going to have an opposite effect. Much, much easier for me to explain today what that process is as opposed to back then. If I had to give it a name, I would say it's the awakening process. It's an evolution of consciousness that cannot, will not, and no matter what decisions or possibilities are injected into the equation, eventually it all resolves down to us all learning the truth and becoming aware of this massive dam of lies that has been built that keep us from knowing massive volume of information that we should otherwise possess. Essentially what happened with Looking Glass, not only did they not want people to use it anymore because they knew it was just going to burp out the same thing, but at the same time they didn't want anybody else to know what it was saying, I'm sure. Because that information was a monumental concern when I was in the military about how to prevent this inevitability. Now, at first I thought it was end of the world. Now I see end of the world as end of their world. The biggest cherry on top of all this conversation would be a synopsis to say that if I could convince everybody out there that for all intents and purposes, what we believe to be true eventually becomes true. If somebody convinces us that a major disaster is going to happen in the very near future, a major disaster happens in the very near future. If we don't buy into that fear and accept that there's really nothing that we know is going to happen, and accept of whatever happens, that makes the convergence of the timelines happen as naturally as possible. Any attempts to try to go away from this one inevitable conclusion, I again see as a new beginning, an end of this reality, the beginning of something that we can't even possibly understand based on the level of our beliefs currently. But when all that information comes flooding out, there's going to be no denying what's true and what's a lie or what's illusion. Basically, what we're experiencing right now is two master chess players sitting at the board. And one of them looks down at the board and sees that he's in checkmate in 7 moves. And he looks across at his opponent and he knows that his opponent sees it too. So there's no getting out of it. So at this point, the loser can only prolong the game. Both players know the game is over. It's only a matter of time before he does this, and then you're forced to do this, and then he's forced to do this, and eventually checkmate. We, as a race, if we could understand that the game is over, that based on the rules of the game, the bad guys have already lost, the good guys have already won. Yes, there's moves left on the table, but those moves are being forced by the player that is going to win. The only way that checkmate can't happen is if the player that's winning makes a mistake. But from all of the information that I've gathered, all of the information that's been given, all of the information that's been vetted to me, it seems pretty obvious that the good guy player on the side of the chessboard knows exactly what has to be done to win the game. And so at this point, any mistake would be all but impossible. But again, you really have to understand the game to know that the guy that's losing is lost. And I'm sure most people sitting watching a chess match between two advanced chess players know the game's over long after the two players know it's over. Because they can't see the board and see that there's only 7 moves left.